Welcome to Rauta's Vinyl Reviews. This time we go to Germany, figuratively speaking, with the band called Morast. This is actually something that I recently got to interview in Germany when they were playing their show in Ván Records 4. And man, it was really brilliant one. Really got me going. I loved their performance and the music was good. Back then I didn't even remember it was a few years ago when I had been listening to their previous album, so the curse of being a reviewer, too many albums and too much to forget. So as such, this one was a really positive surprise. Not so much against the music what happened on stage, but sometimes, well, life is different. Now let's first unsleeve this vinyl. Mind you, this was a very sweet, from the band's perspective, or their behalf and all, because after the interview with the guys, the bass player wanted to give me and the cameraman these fine-looking marble LPs. As you can see, hopefully, this is marble design, gray, as is very fitting for the band name, I guess. And then this non-glassy vinyl one, what we have here, Fentanyl. And on the other side, you will of course see the track listing. Very minimal design and beautiful as such. And then of course there is inlay featuring all the necessary information, lyrics, and more information. And you can probably figure out what this chemical print is here. And if you can't, well, let that sink in for a bit. Here he has the lineup, vocals by Z, who was also taking part of the interview, as well as bass player Ron. And then we have the guitarist and drums. All played wonderful performance at Ván Records. Really kind of made me a fan. And of course, as such, I was like, I hope I'm gonna like the LP. And to be said, frankly, I like this even more than what I was expecting. So here on Metal Archive, as you can see, there are a few bands with the same name. This one is the blackened doom death metal from Germany. I hate these, genre definitions when you have more than just a couple of words, like this is death metal, this is black metal. When it goes beyond 3 words, like death, doom metal, whatever, I'm like, oh, it's not gonna be my thing. It's probably gonna suck. Why? Hybrid ones tend to be that. I'm a simple guy, I want simple music. Death metal, black metal, thrash metal, heavy metal, and so on. But as it sometimes goes, there are exceptions to the rule, and this is one of them. Founded in 2015, so 10 years now, 3 albums out, and the first years were active, as it tends to be with many bands. First you do an album, a single, an EP, and a split or whatever, and then it starts to kind of slow down. Why? Well, the initial ideas sometimes get out of the system, and then you're like, hey, we actually got to figure out something new. Or in some cases, the members have other projects, like in this case. R is known for other bands, same for L, and same for J, and same for Z, the vocalist being the most active, at least in terms of bands. But that doesn't mean that this isn't going someplace. In fact, when I was taking notes or looks at my previous album review by the very given band in Nostro Silenzio 2019, well, it was good, but this one is better. So enter Fentanyl from 2025, early years. This is 6 tracks, about 34 minutes. Obviously, when I'm spinning the vinyl, I can really say that, yeah, I measured it like that, because with CD player, you get to see the total running time. LP, not so much. Not with my sound system anyway. So, like I was talking about the genres, it sometimes gets complicated. But the very first moment when you put this on and you start listening, it's kind of obvious that it is indeed death doom metal. The death doom is obviously very different than your traditional doom, but how is that doom then compared to death metal? Well, you obviously get the more slow stuff and sometimes even more atmospheric one. Now, I don't tend to be calling death metal atmospheric so often because, well, death metal is what it is. Sometimes it's very barbaric and it can be mid-tempo and all that, but then it's more like tanks rolling forward. Think about both, or especially the early years. But when it takes this to doom, it's always like, okay, it's slowing down. And like said, often it brings out something totally different than you're saying traditional doom. And I'm thinking back in the days, early 90s and all, there were these bands like My Dark Brand and Anathema and the like, which were definitely tapping into both worlds. Death metal growly, but slow tempo, and having a little bit of this gothic element. Now there is where Morast goes different ways. Whereas a lot of those old school death doom bands were kind of taking the benefit of the growly vocals and, heavy guitar sound and all that stuff, but having this doomier approach. Whether it was more gothic or not doesn't make a difference. But Morast is more like, hey, we need to put this blackened state back into the game. So if it was a little bit different, like faster for instance, it could be just seen as black death metal. But it's more definitely, music-wise, riff-wise, atmospheric-wise, more death doom. And that's where you get this kind of a hybrid of a thing, which might scare scary people such as me. Like, oh no, it's gonna having too many genre definitions. But luckily, this time every block, think it like Lego bricks, finds its place nicely and wow, it's right there. First of all, this is very, very blackened, meaning it's very dark, bleak, and kind of ominous to it too. I mean, there's this presence which makes this feel like, okay, this dark, obsidian tower is gonna fall on me. It feels heavy. It is very, very sinister in nature. So there is this evil lurking presence right there. But then again, it's more like slow tempo. Nothing is really happening that fast. So it's not like there is this violence coming from the black or death metal territory. So that's where the Doom guy steps in and says, yeah, we're gonna make it slow. We're gonna make it sinister or evil, ominous, whatever. And I'm liking it. And then you have the vocals, which are not necessarily really black metal-like, even though Z's style is definitely coming from the black metal territory. After all, he's a vocalist of bands like Enstila and Graven. But these are a little bit different. And of course, then you have this guitar sound and drumming. And the drumming is interesting because it's not exactly technical, nor it's far away from being this kind of a boring, basic drumming. What might be the thing with so many doom death metal bands. Not really that much happening in terms of speed or technicality. This is not the technical sides, but there's a lot of details, nuance, if you will, which I really love as a drum pornography fan. Reminds me a little bit of Russian Circles, which is then again post-metal, so different but not that different. And like I said, the guitars, they're heavy, they're pounding, they're punchy, powerful, simply said. And now when I was talking about them Lego bricks, like I said, usually these kind of a hybrid of things, they're too much of a mess. Like it's everybody wants to go a little bit different directions. Or like the saying goes, too many chefs can spoil the broth. This is quite a different type of thing. This broth is working magically because all the ingredients are right there. Now remember when I mentioned the bass. Yes, that could be even more dominating because this kind of stuff is right there. But then again, maybe it's the actually background, what the bass is doing with the drums and all. Maybe you just don't pay attention to it because it's actually coloring the whole heavy blackened theme there without, actually waving its hands like, I'm here. So what I'm trying to say here is, this totally surprised me, pants down. Meaning, this is really good of an album and one of the best ones so far in year 2025. I don't know why I was expecting a little bit less based on the live, but maybe I was figuring this is more of a live band and not so much studio band. Because there are those bands which I really enjoy live, not so much on albums, and vice versa. Morast has now proven it can be both, so I'm really happy that I kind of got to reintroduce to them after the 2019 album. Like I said, it was good. This one is better. So what are you waiting for? Go check out their music. Links are of course included in the description box. And of course check out the interview I did with the guys. It's technically speaking Morast / Enstila because Enstila vocalist is the same as Morast one. And they both bands were supposed to play there and still couldn't, but that's another story. Point is, we're talking about both bands, but if you want to dive into Morast just a little bit deeper than the music, check out the interview as well. And of course, I hope you like it. And like the saying goes, if you like it, go buy it. Now, if you go near people, bye-bye.